Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Snowbeck. Today we are going to do Unit 3, Lesson 2. It's all about congruent triangles. Remember, congruent means same size, same shape. So if two geometric figures have exactly the same size, exactly the same shape, they are congruent. Like these hearts, even though one is upside down and one is sideways, those hearts are still congruent to each other. I also wanted to remind you what polygons are, because this word comes up quite a bit in this section. A polygon is a closed figure. It's formed by segments that have common endpoints called vertices. Remember, for instance, on this pentagon, this corner, this corner, this corner, these are vertices. And if you have one, it's a vertex. If you have many, it's vertices. The segments are sides, and they intersect each side at two vertices. Like, for instance, this is not a polygon because of this. They don't exactly meet at the endpoints. This is not a polygon because it's not a closed figure. This is not a polygon because a circle is not made out of segments. So keep that in mind. Polygons have to be closed figures and they have to be made out of segments. And so all of these figures like triangle, quadrilateral, pentagon, hexagon, octagon, those are polygons. Two triangles are congruent if and only if their corresponding sides and angles are congruent. So take a look at these two triangles on the right. We have triangle ABC and we have triangle KHJ, and we're going to try to figure out if they are congruent to each other. So for instance, look at angle A. Do you see how angle A has two marks, two little curves in there? Well, on the other triangle, angle H has two curves. And so angle A in one triangle is congruent to angle H in the other. And then if we look at B, angle B has one curve, angle J has one curve. So angle B is congruent to angle J. And then finally, C has three curves, K has three curves. So angle C is congruent to angle K. So all of the angles in one of the triangles match up with an angle in the other triangle. Now let's look at the sides. So the sides, let's look at side AB. Do you see how side AB has one tick mark on it? Well, over in the other triangle, we have side JH with one tick mark on it. So if we want to say that those are corresponding, or those are congruent to each other, what we could do is we could say segment AB. Now, since I started with A and A has two little marks in it, I have to start with H on the other triangle. So it's going to be HJ, not JH. It's important to keep them in corresponding order. Next, let's talk about the side with two tick marks on it. So how about BC? So BC in the one triangle, let's see, what does that compare to in the other triangle? So BC goes from the single curve over to the triple curve. So if I go on the other triangle, it looks like J to K. If I start at the single curve and go to the triple curve, that's JK. And then finally, we have our last side, and the last side is AC. And so side AC, or segment AC, goes from double to triple. So that's going to be H to K. HK is double angle to triple angle. Now, since all of the corresponding sides were congruent and all of the corresponding angles were congruent, then we can say the triangles are congruent. So we can say something like triangle ABC is congruent to, and now we have to list them in matching order. So what matches up with A? H. What matches up with B? J. And then K is our last letter. So that is our congruence statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle HJK. Great, will you please pause the video and try number 1. You're going to list all the pairs of congruent angles, all the pairs of congruent sides, and then at the end you'll go back up and write your congruence statement. So go ahead and pause the video and try to do this one. So angle A matches with W, angle B matches with X, Angle C matches with Y, and angle D matches with Z. So those are the angles that match up. Next, we're going to do the sides. So side AB, remember you have to put that segment bar above it. So side AB matches with WX, and it has to be in that order because A has a single mark, B has a double mark. So on the other one, we go WX because W has a single mark, X has a double mark. So it goes in order. All right, now let's do side BC. So side BC matches up with side XY. Side CD, so segment CD matches up with segment YZ. And then last but not least, segment AD matches up with segment WZ. So this is pretty cool. All the sides matched, all the angles matched. So we can write our congruent statement. Now, since this is a quadrilateral, we do not put a triangle symbol in front. We just go ABCD is congruent to WXYZ. Order matters. Since I started with A, I had to start with W because they were corresponding with each other. So this is a really cool theorem. It says corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So if you have two triangles that are congruent, then all of their matching parts also have to be congruent or equal to each other. So look at number 2. In the diagram, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DFE. Find the values of X and Y. Now, I'm looking down at triangle DFE, and I notice an X, but it has a Y with it. So to me, that one seems like it might be kind of difficult to solve for first. So I think what I'll do is I'll see if I can solve for Y first. Now I see a Y at angle F. Angle F is the middle letter listed up here at the top. F is in the middle. It's going to match up with B in the other triangle because B is also in the middle. So the order matters. The F matches with the B. So I can go 8y minus 5 equals 99. And I know that they are congruent because they're parts of corresponding congruent triangles. So here we go. Add 5 to both sides. 8y equals 104. Divide by 8. So if you divide 104 by 8, I believe you get 13. So 13 is y. Now we still have to find x, but what I would do is I would take this 13 and I would plug it in for this y. So let's look at that segment right there. We're looking at segment EF. Okay, segment EF. If you go up to the top, E and F are the last two letters. B and C are the last two letters in the other one. So B and C matches with E and F. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say 2y plus x, but instead of the y, I'm going to plug in the 13. So 2 times 13 plus x has to equal the 38.4. Because those two sides, the E and the F and the B and the C, match up. They correspond with each other. 26 plus x equals 38.4 minus 26, x equals 12.4. 12.4 is your other answer. So why don't you pause the video and try this one? Remember that you have to look up here at the top to see what matches with what. So go ahead, try to find x and try to find y. So angle x, or x is in angle T, I should say. T is the first letter. It matches with R, that is the first letter. Now R doesn't have anything in it, so that's not very helpful. But when I look at that triangle on the left, I see a 90 and a 78, so I think I can find R. If I do 180 minus the 90 minus the 78, there's 12 left for this angle, angle R. So guess what? X is 12. Every triangle, the three corners have to add up to 180. Okay, now I'm going to try to find y. So for y, it's right here. It's on segment RS. Now segment RS, the first two letters are going to match with TV, which is 24. So first two letters match with first two letters. So what I'm going to say is 2y minus 1 equals, and then it's the 24 that it matches up with. So add your 1, 2y equals 25, divide by 2, y equals 12.5. The third angle theorem. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of a second triangle, then the third angles have to be congruent. Think about this picture over here on the right. Let's say this angle right here is 60, and let's say this angle right here is 50. Well, since the 60 is one curve, this one would also be 60, and since the 50 is two curves, this one would also be 50. But think about a triangle. 180 minus 60 minus 50 is 70. So that third angle, even though it wasn't marked, I know that has to be 70, and so does this one. So what this theorem says is if you know two of the angles are congruent in one triangle compared to the other triangle, then the third angles also have to be congruent. Go to number 4. Find the value of x. So I see the 90-degree marks, like right here and right here. Those are congruent. I see the single curve, those are congruent. So that means what we have left is the 2x has to equal the 80 because the third angles have to be congruent. Divide by 2, x has to be 40. Okay, will you try number 6? Pause the video, try number 6. So the single curve is 65 at L. So then at Z, it's also 65. And the double curve is 51. Now, we know N has to match with X, but that's not very helpful because we don't know what N is. So we either have to find N, which we can do. Why don't we do that? So 180 minus the 65 minus the 51, I believe that leaves 64, but check my math on that. So if this third angle is 64, what I know is that the 4x has to equal the 64. Divide both sides by 4, x equals 16. That's kind of a tricky one. That's it, kind of a short lesson. So Unit 3, Practice 2 is next. Will you guys give that one a try? If you need help, let me know. Have a great day.